gathering here in worship in the presence of God and one another to celebrate the life of Margret Hofmann and to know that she is now in God's keeping. We are also here to comfort the grieving and to be reminded that we are never separated from the creation or love of one another. Quakers worship in centering silence and expectant waiting to listen within ourselves to the voice of the Spirit. Let us center down and go to that reverent place. The family will begin with introductions and then invite others to share memories of Margret. If you are moved by the Spirit to share a message, memory, story, song, or prayer, please stand and a microphone will be brought to you. We found that we really need microphones to hear these days. It would help if you would introduce yourself and tell us of your relationship with Margret. As you return to your seat, we will enjoy a few moments of silence to absorb the message and to consider it carefully before another rises with the sharing. When it seems that everyone has had a chance to speak, I will close this memorial meeting for worship by shaking hands with Margret, inviting you to do likewise by greeting your neighbors.
Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome each of you to something that we don't like to talk about, but we don't have to face once in a while. And one of these is the passing of a family member, in this case, the passing of our mother. And she's had a special part in each one of your hearts, and ours as well. As we were doing this service earlier today, my sister Heidi mentioned, where would we be without her? That being said, I'd like to first introduce myself. I'm Franz, I'm the oldest in the family. I'm now what's called the patriarch. That's going to take some time to get used to. I haven't had to do that before.
It's only to go to your head.
So, that being said, I'd like Linda to join us, along with my oldest son Michael, my youngest son Andrew, and our two granddaughters, Jordan and Kinsey Hofmann. And so we're very flattered, very proud that each one of you could be here and greet us as well. And look forward to hearing your memories, and we're not through yet. We have a lot to go through. So, where it is.
I'm Margret, otherwise known as Sis, or Sis. I'm here with my wonderful supportive husband, BJ, and my fantastic son, Martin, hanging over by the music, of course. Okay. And we're from the Decatur area. I teach.
Anna, third child, Middleton. My husband Steve, my daughter Christy, my boyfriend Aaron, and I also have two stepsons who couldn't make it, and they're both married with children. And then we have a little Katie, who left us 2 years ago, but she's with Grandma now. To travel with Mom was the best. I don't have a vacation. I was to have a vacation with my mom. She took us to those fabulous places you don't think about, and places that you just go on a tour, you're not going to run into. And 1967, she took us to Canada, 5 of us in an air-conditioned van with a stick shift. And no surprise. She had her whole itinerary right here in her head. All done with phone calls and writing letters for 2.5 months. And at one point, it's probably the best trip of her life. At one point, she's deep in thought, flying down the highway. Franz and Barbara are in the back fighting. Heidi are in the back doing something, and I'm navigating. I'm 11 years old. Mom decided, okay, time to pull over, let's look at the map. Not knowing the cop had flagged her down for speeding, she was probably doing about 90. Not even realizing it. And so she's looking at the map, and he stopped you? She goes, I didn't know you stopped me. He said, well, you were speeding, and he's looking at all the kids and he says, lady, are these all your kids? Yeah. Where are you going? Montreal to the World's Fair. Where are you from? Texas. Where's your husband? In Texas. You got enough trouble in 12 too. There's nothing like traveling with Mom. She was the best to travel with.
Big girl.
Big girl.
Great. I'm Heidi Vaselka. I'm Margaret's fourth child. This is my loving husband, Don. Our fabulous and caring daughters, Stephanie, Holly, and Heather. And it's no fair to get me crying right off the bat, but I might as well read this while I got, before I get to the ugly cry. In 1995, shortly after a birthday party for my mother where I think she was kind of expecting a toast, and I choked. I guess I wasn't old enough to figure out I was supposed to have one ready. So this was like, 16 years ago. And she was going out of town on a trip by herself as usual. I think she was heading to Europe. So I wrote her a letter because I didn't want her to think she wasn't important enough for me to have a toast. I wanted to know what she meant. There's no way I can get through this, but anyway. So I slipped this in her purse and I said, read it on the plane. So for some reason I have felt moved for the past 3 weeks to read this. And it's July 17th, 1995. Dear Mom, while I couldn't come up with anything appropriate to say and toast to you on your 70th birthday, I found it easy to write down these few thoughts just in case you're wondering if I'll miss you. I will think of you every time I see a sunset, a crepe myrtle, a huge oak tree, a Gänseblümchen, and a breathtaking view. And remember that you taught me to be aware of the beauty around me, that all I have to do is look. I will think of you every time I clean my house, organize my file cabinet, weed through my pile of papers with the trash can next to me. You can relate, right? And pack my suitcase for a trip. And I'll remember that you taught me the importance of not being a slave to my possessions. I will think of you every time I study towards my degree, attempt to write a letter in German, question authority, witness injustice, and split an infinitive. And I'll strive to mirror the example you set by your honesty, hard work, attention to detail, and quality. I will think of you every time I take my vitamins, go to the doctor for a checkup, and floss my teeth. And I'll remember your encouragement for me to take care of my own health as well as that of others. I'll think of you every time I eat coffee ice cream, cook smashed potatoes, smell roast and gravy, and find a good bunch of grapes. And I'll remember that you always seem to have a little treat for me when I visit. I'll think of you every time I hum, smile at a stranger, encourage compromise, and sing Piccolo Mini. And remember the importance of my own disposition to the happiness of others. I will think of you every time I hold the hand of someone sick. And I'll remember when you held mine and I held yours. Okay. And that simple compassion is in itself healing. I will think of you every time one of my little girls says, I love you, Mommy. And I'll remember the loving relationship you and I have. I'll remember the way your hug feels, the texture of your skin when you pat my hand reassuringly, and the way your eyes look when you laugh so hard that you cry. You and I may be far apart, but never really far at all, as long as we think of each other. I love you, Mom.
All right, up. But quickly, I want to ask Jeff, I played Scrabble with Mother a lot. And I had her beat by 30
Would you
points.
hold that closer to your mouth?
Yes, I had Mother beat by 30 points in Scrabble. And she had one letter left. We played in German and English. And I thought she did it. No way. She finagled to put a Z by 2 U's on triple word score for Zoo. She got 50 points. So, oh yeah, Sue. He's lead. She said that to us a lot. We're talking too much. Sue. Or Liz Sue. So I'm here with Angela, my wife, and Princess Carolina Hofmann, who's going to address y'all shortly. Marshall Levi, Stephen William, and Alexa Catalina, and just a wonderful family. I'm so glad everybody's here. And Carolina, you wanted to say something, didn't you?
My name is Carolina Margret Hofmann. My grandma called me Little Grayson.
Now, I can just yield just a few moments to Councilmember Morrison, who's a time constraint.
Thank you. Should I stay here? Okay. Thank you for sharing those stories. I got to know Margret once I became a council member, and of course the famous story, there might be a few different versions of it, that I knew was that before she was on council, she went down to the city council to try to get sidewalks in her neighborhood so that the kids would be safe walking to school. And unfortunately for the city council members, their response was, well, why don't we just get a car and drive the kids to school? Which prompted her to, of course, run for city council, get involved, and win the city council seat. I was sharing that story with a young woman yesterday. I love that story because I think it's, it's such a wonderful model for everybody in this city that you can make a change if you make the decision to do that. And she said, oh, so sidewalks are the gateway drug to a city council seat. I knew, before I met her, of course, I knew her as the tree lady. She had such an impact on the city of Austin, helping raise awareness for all of us, and really made a change. And it's so fitting that we named the park right across from City Hall, Margret Hofmann Oaks Park. So I hope you all get to go visit it when you're ready to sit and contemplate Margret and her life a little bit. And I have just been fortunate enough in my office to have Alan Pogue, who I see sitting in the back, hang some photographs. And on one wall, we have the photograph of Margret in front of the 700-year-old oak tree, which he has right there, with an amazing look on her face, which really shows the power that she has. And that's a wall that we have photographs of Margret, Barbara Jordan, Ann Richards, Molly Ivins, and Dolores Huertas, all women who have really had an impact, wonderful women that have had an impact on our lives. I got to meet Margret personally after I got onto the city council and had some lovely lunches with her where she was intensely sharing with me ideas about how to make city government more efficient, and districting and government structure and the dynamics of power. all things that are still ever present today. And I've learned so much from her, there's no doubt. And it was clear to me in knowing Margret that my path had crossed with a very, very special person in this world. She is a woman of conviction and such a strong sense of justice and intelligence, and she shared all that with us and the world, and I really appreciate that. And hearing your stories, I can't imagine what she was like to be a mom to you. Must have been pretty great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Growing up with mother was amazing. I can just see the people here I've not seen in 30 years. Some of the sayings she used to say, so profound, so meaningful throughout the times. One of them was, agree with someone until you change their mind.
She did.
And she, disagree without being disagreeable. And it's just so subtle and so meaningful and so brief. And so just around the dinner table with mother was just incredibly fascinating. And so I hope each one of you has a moment to share some of your thoughts briefly, of course, because there's so many people I'm sure that want to speak. But I just want to pass on to my brother Franz, and again, thank everybody for being here. And as we pass the microphone around, we all look forward to hearing what y'all have to say.
A little bit of etiquette in here, if I may. There are a lot of you in here, and I do appreciate every one of you wanting an opportunity to speak. If you wouldn't mind keeping it condensed, we haven't done so far. Keeping it brief to the point, all of you get a chance to use the microphone. But we're not leaving until we hear from every one of you. Mom, I want to know, before we get started? All right.
Stephen is going to play Mother's favorite song on the piano.
You can play this one or the electronic one. Martin, are they playing yours or over here? Okay, this one. The piano right behind the
No, Stephen, you like that one. Right?
Briefly, my brother alluded to the fact that Mom likes to play Scrabble. You rarely left her house without an opportunity to play Scrabble. I'm still mad. because Grismekko is not a real word. I tried. But, so that's something I remember to this day. And I'd like to hand the mic over to my sister next, but my son, Michael, and my nephew, Martin, at one point chose a little different twist in life. And they chose to serve the United States Army. Excuse me a second. During some real difficult times. The outcome for both were in doubt, and both succeeded in their endeavors and served valiantly. My future nephew, Oakley, is also doing the same. And Mom called me one day. She said, "Do you know what your son is going to do?" And I said, "Absolutely. He wants to do it. He has strong convictions." She says, "Well, there's no use talking him out of it." I says, "No, he's going to do awesome." She says, "Well, you're doing the job well." And for that, I'm immensely proud of that. So.
I have to read it on Bible. Mother taught us many things, but one of the most important lessons was not to be afraid. For everything about which I was concerned, Mother had an answer. God was bowling when I heard thunder, and He was watering the flowers when it rained. Instead of saying that people hate each other and fight, she suggested we discover why people don't like us and try to remedy the situation. She wanted us to appreciate life that we always had in menagerie of animals. Spiders, cats, dogs, snakes, birds, turtles. One night she woke me, brought in the cat so she could have her kids on my lap. Fascinating. She pointed out the lonely flower in the yard, the rainbow, the sunset, the baby frog. Mother appreciated life and wanted to create good and positive memories, so photography was a great avenue for doing just that. One of her concerns was that the Holocaust would continue to be taught, so we do not deepen history. Teaching us to respect and improve life was her passion. I hope I do even a fraction of that.
Scrabble. I think, I don't want to toot my own horn, but I think I beat Grandma.
You have to confuse her.
One time in 27 years of my life. I mean, and I really thought that there's no way this is going to happen. It's like seeing the finish line, and then there's alligators, and there's no way this is going to happen. I said, Grandma Margret is never going to ever be forgotten in anything that ever. And you can tell me this, I'm the squirrely one, and even I can always relate to that. What would Grandma think of this, or that, or any kind of perspective? And I can always appreciate it. I thank my mother. I know where I get my heart from. As squirrely and weird as I'm known to be, I got my heart from my mother. It's cute. She got that one from her mother. I might not be a direct descendant of any Hofmann, but I am. I'll never forget Margret, and I'm just grateful to be here and part of this family. More than anything.
When I think of my grandma, I think of, when everybody thinks of their grandma, they think of their mom or dad's mom. When I think of my grandma, I think of someone who's had a lifelong learning and she wants to share it with all of us. And that's what Grandma did for us. She never came up, she always
I first met Margret in the mid-50s when we both went to a fundraiser luncheon for Henry B. Gonzalez, who was a state senator at the time. He was running for governor of Texas. And it turned out that Margret had lived just a little bit further south from where I did. And so we worked out a deal where I'm a night person, she's a morning person. So we worked out a deal where she dropped off her then 3 children, and I babysat with them. They played in my backyard, actually. And then later on, she would come at noon, pick up my kids and take them to her house, where they had a great time because they lived on Cardinal Lane and had a lot of room there. But in the meantime, needless to say, Henry Gonzalez didn't win that election. Texas wasn't quite ready for that. But he then went to San Antonio, which is where he was from. The reason we were supporting Henry Gonzalez was because they had there was an Attorney General of Texas who had offered 3 segregation bills to the legislature. And Henry Gonzalez got up and filibustered them. And as a young man, or as a kid growing up, he spent all his time in the library in San Antonio and learned a lot about history. And so instead of reading the phone book, which is what some people do when they are filibustering, he actually talked about Texas history, Mexican history, Spanish history, Greek and Roman history, all of it. But in the meantime, he didn't win that election, but he did go on to get elected to Congress from San Antonio. And I've supported a lot of candidates over the years, and some of them I've been disappointed in. But Henry Gonzalez, I was never disappointed in. He was faithful to his principles, to everybody's principles, and he did what was right all the time. So, Margret and I go way back. My husband was in the printing business on South Congress. She brought, her book was printed there, her bumper sticker for Save Texas Trees, Save Our Trees was printed there. Steve, now was known as Timmy back then. And she would bring him in with her, and I can tell you he was a holy terror. So they was kind of back down your hatches when Margret showed up with Timmy. Anyway, I'm really proud of the long friendship we had. And I can see why she was a little unhappy with some of her grandchildren for joining the military, because as a Quaker, that's something you don't really believe in. And also she had experienced some really bad things in Germany because of that war.
Ann, introduce yourself.
That was Ann McAfee. Yeah, and I just want to touch on, it's very important what Ann was saying about mother in World War II. And most of us know that Mom was born in 1925, and so she was 8 years old and during Kristallnacht. And they were a very well-to-do family, and it was a very nice neighborhood, but her mother was half Jewish. And when the brown ships came in, they wrecked the whole house, and they were destroying everything. And they saw on the mantle, and Mother just told myself and my brother this story just recently. My sisters hadn't even heard it. And the brown shirts, the Nazi brown shirts, saw on the mantle the picture of, I believe it was my mother's uncle, who was Jewish. I think his name was Israel. World War I sergeant was their sergeant. It was tough. And they stopped. And they left. Every single house that those brown shirts had visited, they killed everybody. Except that one. So Mother had this thing that she was spared for a reason. Her mother died in a concentration camp. So her whole life was, let us not have this happen to society again. She dedicated to that. So again, when she sees her grandchildren in uniform, she has to think back to that. But she sat down with each one of them, and so they understood where she came from. And they all have this understanding. And they all know that where their grandmother had been. So I just want everybody to have that.
My name's Christy. I'm Margaret's granddaughter. When me and Aaron decided to make the decision that he would go into the Army, my grandma, the first thing I thought was, oh, grandma's going to be pissed. And, even this Thanksgiving, he wore his uniform. The first thing I thought was grandma's going to be pissed. you know, she understood that it was the best thing for us, and that she did ultimately. She gave us her blessing, and that was better than winning the lottery. And just knowing that she supported us, even though she had such a rough past with war, and it was really nice to hear her say that.
Again, my name is Martin Hunter. I didn't say my name earlier. And with my brain, I skipped out on what I meant to say earlier. Myself, Michael, we've both been through some crazy extremes. I did not think I would ever be standing here today like I am. I have a finger and a toe for every time I shouldn't be. You probably do too. Hopefully you got a desk job. But what I did in my military service was not being known for being a nice guy. That was not my job. My job was to do my duty. But sitting down with Grandma, it was like no holds barred political, not debate. It was, you know, she would agree with me until she did a change my mind. More subliminally, well, made travel. More than it was going to happen. But it was that bond. I'm sure you probably share the same, where I got that feeling when I was a sort of survivor from my own, and I always had a relation with her that she had gone through similar things or further extremes of persecution than what I went through, and I can't even fathom it. But that was always one of my most crucial things that I will ever remember, with her sitting there playing Scrabble and having these moral and theological and society type debates over where we're heading as humanity as a whole. And it definitely gives you perspective for where you might live your life together or live it.
Now, I'm Jim Grice. I had known Margaret from the Friends meeting many years, I suppose, before she got involved. And is generally known in our community as supporting the trees in the council. I don't want to say much except that on what's been said about her experience in Germany in the war, even to me, and I didn't see that much, although it seems like 2 or 3 times a year I'd see her. Over the last many years, I talked to her on the phone, she'd call me for something. I always had this feeling of a profound understanding that she had, and it made a difference.
I'm Jeff Hofmann, and I met Margaret at the Quaker meeting sometime around Y2K. And I think that I noticed first about her, she'd get up and talk about a book sale, and she just had a really nice sense of humor about it. I mean, just a dry sense of humor I've always loved. And pretty soon I think we went out to lunch, and it was a burst of tons of lunches over the years and dinners and different things. I remember watching the election in 2004 with her and some other friends. And one of the things that I really liked a lot about Margaret is her just a real deep appreciation for the complexity of what it is to live. And, you know, I can remember her telling stories about, you know, seeing charred corpses and trees in Dresden. And yet, her spirit toward other people was not bitter at all. And you know, when I got to know her, she had been a politician years before and all that, but there was something just really nice about the way she would disagree in an agreeable way. And anyway, my own little favorite story is that you may remember back, I don't know if it was in 2004 anyway, sometime having to do with the Iraq War, when President Bush was, you know, talking about that he case for our freedom. And I'm a writer and author, and so I got all ripped up and was writing a Newsweek My Turn type column, and it was going to be called What Freedom? And it was going to be all about how, freedom is sort of an abstraction. People, you drive a few miles over the speed limit, you get a ticket, you don't pay it, and this, and all kinds of little small ways in which you're really not free. You shoot your mouth off at work, you wouldn't have a job pretty soon, all that. And I happened to be talking to Margret about this, and I actually, had a litany of small-minded ways in which we're not free. And Margret told me that she agreed that all that was true, but she also pointed out that, she had experienced a world in which, if you spoke out, you didn't lose your job. They came for you at night and killed you. At which point I abandoned writing that. And I just always have appreciated her ability to put things in perspective. So, Margret Hofmann, it was wonderful to have you in my life. I love you.
Hi, everybody. Franz, Barbara, Heidi, Steve, Anna, all of us in this room share your grief and extend our hearts to you. My name is Brad Buchholz. Sometimes I'm a feature writer for the Austin American Statesman. I sat with Margret Hofmann for years writing a feature story about Margret. And I got to know her very, 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 very well over the course of those years. People at the newspaper office, I swear, they were going to fire me because I kept going back. It was a job that could never be finished. Margret would not allow it to be finished. Come again, I have more things to tell you, more things to show you. The Peace Library is open 24 hours a day. Come and check things out, talk to me. I had a gut feeling when we first gathered here that we were just doomed. There was no way that we could do justice to Margret because it was impossible for us to live up to her standard because her standard was perfection. She demanded so much of herself in any endeavor that she undertook and expected that we all honor that high bar in her vicinity. And in Margaret's world, perfection meant that there were no bombs, there were no machines of war, there was no hate, there was no bloodshed in the name of religion. And she also believed in a kind of vigilance, a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week dedication to reach a state in this world where there would be none of those things. No wars, no bloodshed, no tanks. So we can't live up to Margaret's standard. It's impossible. But I think Margaret's charge to us
her legacy, perhaps, is to keep trying. I think if Margaret were here today, she would be doing the good work, she would be trying, she would be encouraging us to reach a higher plane, to question authority, to question norms, to suggest kindly a better and more peaceful and more compassionate way in the world. I got to know her so well sitting with her. In a way I've probably never gotten to know another subject in another feature story that I've ever written in my life. And as I'm surrounded by Margaret's family, one of the things I know she would want me to say, because she repeated it to me again and again and again, is this notion of why I, Margaret Hofmann, matter. What did I give? What did I do? And one of the things she said over and over again was, my children have told me that because I made it out of Germany, because I came to the United States and married, that there's, 75 people that wouldn't be alive today if it wasn't for me. Margaret took great satisfaction, a woman who didn't find peace easily, in the notion that she was loved by so many people in her central family. It was really, really valuable to her. It really meant a lot to her. I love Margaret's sense of humor. I think one of the things that I'll always remember is a family photograph that she shared with me. You all know how Margaret felt about organized religion. Of her standing on the Capitol grounds in front of the Ten Commandments statue, and she very slightly pointed to the "Thou shalt not kill" line as a way to remind us that we don't have to argue. The way to peace or the way to a better life is right in front of us. Let's just look right here. If we follow this directive, we might find a better way. I took a few notes because I thought Margaret might want me to. I'll shut up in a minute. But we were really close in an exceptional way. We can say a lot of things about Margaret Hofmann, but one of the things I think we can say for sure is that this person, this amazing woman, did not have a single superficial bone in her body. Nowhere. Because of what she survived and experienced and witnessed and walked through as a child, as an adolescent, as an adult, she couldn't comprehend a world of reality television or American Idol or Dancing with the Stars. Anybody who goes through Margaret's possessions, I know the family's doing this right now, you're not finding superficial stuff in there. What you're finding is materials, writings, reflections, photographs that relate to a life of substance and a life that has as its larger objective a better way, humanity. I know Margaret would have wanted to pass this on. Her children already know this inside and out. Her grandchildren, her great-grandchildren, all that follow. Margaret was about substantial things all the time. As was alluded earlier, you were forever learning new things about Margaret. I spent hours and hours, days and days, years and years with her. I wrote a story. And when it was over, I casually. I said, Margaret, we were talking about bombing rates because she survived countless dramatic, horrifying bombing experiences growing up in Germany. And I said, Margaret, how many times do you think it was that you were summoned to a bomb shelter when a siren went off to escape the bombs falling from the sky? And she very quickly and casually responded, oh, about 500 or 600 times. She would always encourage people like me to follow the way of peace. Brad, you don't understand. Brad, if you could just sit here longer. Brad, if I could just talk to you longer. I said, Margaret, preaching to the choir here, I'm here. And I know a lot of people in the room felt that Margaret's 24/7 energy was relentless almost. But when I was thumbing through a scrapbook when she was in hospice, I saw a beautiful note from a friend of hers that remarked, isn't it amazing after all that she went through, after all that she experienced, after all the hardships she encountered, that there wasn't an ounce of bitterness in her? That she was filled with love and hope and possibility. She wanted to nurture. And I think this again is another lesson for us all. In the face of horror, evil, recrimination, violence, Margaret responded to the world with a kind of kindness that certainly inspired me, and I know inspires her family. There was a story she told me once, that near the end of the war, near the end of World War II, she, after the fall of the Nazis, Margaret tried to get from the eastern part of Germany and cross enemy lines and find her father, who she thought was in Berlin. And she was smuggled at one point in an ambulance, I think accompanied by Belgian nurses. She was lying in the back of the ambulance as it crossed through the border lines. And she made herself a promise, she said, while she was lying in the back. She said, if you could just make it through this, if you'll just let me through this, I promise I'm going to go to church for a year. And she got through it and came back, and she proudly proclaimed to me when she came to the United States the next year, she went to church every Sunday for the next year, honoring a promise. And there was the point where I said, Margaret, could you answer one question for me about that? And she said, sure. Who did you make the promise to? And she says, oh, that's not important. It's important that we honor our promise, and I honor our promise. And I said, no, Margaret, we made that promise to someone. She gave me that sly look. We all know how Margaret cringed at the way that organized religion has been involved in so many wars. And yet, the night she died, I remember walking in the neighborhood. It was a beautiful, dusty twilight sky that night, if you remember. And there was a little planet on the horizon. I was hoping so much it wasn't Mars. I think it was Venus. And I looked at the sky and I thought to myself, wouldn't it be beautiful right now if Margaret Hofmann could be in a company in peace with her brother and with her father and with her mother? It wouldn't not be the best way for us to imagine peace in the hereafter, regardless of what our sentiments or feelings were, that we could be at last resting in a company of love. Now, I saw Margaret the last time, I think on Monday, before she died. I was alone with her for a while. The family went out for a bit. And it was hard. Margaret fought hard her whole life in the name of good, and she was still fighting to the last moments of her life. And she wasn't speaking then. I'm not sure that she could hear then. I tried to keep things simple. I sat close to her and tried to telegraph certain messages. I tried to think of what her life meant that I could speak back to her. And I remember saying, so brave, so true, so kind, so strong, so brave, so true, so kind, so strong. I remember holding her hand and saying, it's good to see you, Margaret. Brad says, hi, Margaret. Peace, Margaret. Thank you, Margaret.
Our life crossed way back on February 13th, 1945 in Dresden. And didn't want to say anything, but I've known Margret for over 40 years. And are you a son of her? You're married to a family? Well, I just want to honor the service and what you do for this country. I was 20 years in the Air Force and I've seen 3 wars and wound up on the losing side every time. Anyway, what I want to bring out is what I'm to talk to you about. Now, my wife said, keep it short. I'm trying to keep it as short as possible, but please bear with me. I'm from Germany. English is not my native language. I had several strokes, so bear with me if I lose vocabulary or repeat myself. So 1945, our path crossed. And then we met again here in the United States over 40 years ago. And she didn't like me. Said, you're a soldier, you're a killer, you're a trained killer. And as you know, she was a Quaker, wasn't she? She was opposed to violence, right? But her son isn't in for officers. Grandson? Her grandson. In our service, I was a very dedicated soldier. For many years, I got away, I rank and got out after 20 years. And I was in the service, powerful peace. It was also over. Now, the days, I reject all violence. And that's the reason I came up here. Margaret was against violence, very much. And she always emphasized that we should prevent all kinds of conflict and do good. And that's what she did. Then later on, she tried to understand me, and I converted to her same line of thought. That violence only begets violence. And we become more and more opposed to the distortion of the winner of what really is happening. And anybody who has experienced a war and was on the winning side or on the losing side knows that. So I will question everybody who you support in the path we are taking right now. If you support the past this country is taking today, I am very much concerned if I have not wasted my life. Because our conflict, the set of differences, has never been to the benefit of the winner. Never in history. It will never be. It always came back on the winner and the loser. In fact, in some cases, the loser came out way ahead. Today, the standard of living in Poland and Germany is almost twice as high as in the United States. You just don't know. And here we're going backwards. And we are supporting the leadership which is leading us not in the right direction. I will not say that this, what can I say? The only reason I go up here is that I want you to think about what Margaret lived for. I knew her husband. He was a conscientious objector. He was an organ builder. I knew him very well. We visited every church he had rebuilt the organs. He was a fantastic man. And I always admired him. And he finally came around and we saw him quite often. We met very often on the last days too. And I admired her strengths to live a life and support what she believed in. And I think we should celebrate her life. And she has done so much good for the better. And keep her and cherish her acquaintance. Thank you very much.
There was a saying that Mother said that I'm sure all ages remember the Fantasia, the Sorcerer's Apprentice. And this is a very important Mother had about, we have all these things that are tools. In the Sorcerer's Apprentice, Mickey Mouse uses the broom to do his work because he has the wizard's hat. And so those tools, and it's a German saying that, the guys saying that you conjure up the spirits to your work, but soon they're your master. And she always had these little things, nuclear power, computers, cell phones. There are tools that she said they're our masters. Very, very, very profound.
My name is Wesley Miller. I met Margret Hofmann 1969. Still a college kid. Young enough to need influence, I guess, and just old enough to recognize good influence. And something that has remained about Margret, for me, my gratitude. A philosopher I study quite a bit, Martin Buber, and he refers to rabbis back many generations about our day of reckoning. We won't be judged because we weren't good Moses or Abraham. I guess for us it would be Martin Luther King Jr. or Gandhi or someone else, Johnny Cash. But we'll be judged in our day of reckoning because we weren't more vividly, more fully ourselves. And that's what I recognized and observed in Margret Hofmann. And she was always herself, and she was always direct in her action and what she said, because she was sure. She made sure first. And then there was no doubt or turning back. And that relates to what Steve and others have said about her worldview. And the last time I visited Margret in her home, I lived by St. Edwards, she was concerned about her health, and she was very, very concerned about if younger people didn't hear her story and others who experienced massive, tragic cruelty that she had experienced and witnessed, that carelessness and would allow it to happen all over again. And at this moment, at this hour, I'm recognizing that in remembrance of Margret Hofmann and in respect for her guidance in my life, our lives, we need to do as she's done and look thoroughly, completely at who I am. And sometimes it takes volunteering in groups, and they'll tell me who I am. They'll tell me what I'm good at. And those are my gifts. That is how I can be sure. Again, I'm just as grateful as I'm capable of being for her influence on me in those directions.
I'm Terry Sorrell, and I became a member of the Society of Friends in the early 70s in Dallas, and I came to know Margret and Otto through the Friends in Texas. So I was in Dallas, she was in Austin. In that period of time, I had come through struggling with the idea of going to war in Vietnam, and decided early that it was an immoral and illegal war. And once I decided that, I had to struggle with the question of whether any war was moral or legal. And so then I came to the Society of Friends, and one of the people that I met who had a profound effect on me was Margret. Now, the peace testimony of the Society of Friends is difficult. It's not a belief that is widely held. It's not a belief that is in the form of the pacifist belief of never taking up arms. It's not even universally held within the Society of Friends. So particularly as a young man, is a challenge. Usually when people argue against pacifism, the first argument is, suppose the Nazis came to your house and came for your family. Well, this was fairly intimidating to me, but it wasn't a card you could play on Margret. Margaret's pacifism was founded on experience, those kinds of experiences. It was founded on an intellectual foundation that was a steel edifice constructed a tiny piece at a time. And it was founded on spirit. Now, Margret was not the typical Quaker. She didn't talk a lot about the inner light or divine leading or God. God forbid the G word should come out. But I suspect that Margret believed that spirit would shine through your life as it did through hers. And if it didn't come shining through your life and your actions, it was hypocritical to talk about it. So the word that I think of when I think of Margret Hofmann is steadfast. When my beliefs were shaken, Margret was one of the people who helped provide the foundation. Not that I adopted her ideas, but reflecting on her experience and her ideas was something that was extremely important to me all through my life as a friend. I wake up every morning and re-examine the peace testimony. And Margret is there. Margret is there. When you say steadfast, steadfast is a word that is a few short steps away from bullheaded and bigoted. If you want to know the distinction, look at Margret Hofmann. Her beliefs were never based on romanticism, caprice, the ideas of the moment. They were deeply, deeply founded. And this is what I mean by steadfast. the oldest memory I can think of Margaret, though I think I met her before, was when I was a delegate to interim Democratic Convention in Austin. And I arrived, and there was Margaret. And there was Margaret Space Sauer, who was the American Friends Service Committee Peace Secretary at the time. They had a stack of leaflets having to do with ending military aid to the regime in Vietnam of the time. And I think Margaret said something roughly like this to me. There's nothing very important going on in there. Here, take these leaflets and cover the south door. And that was the beginning of understanding steadfastness. And I didn't know of Margaret's children or grandchildren except by an occasional acquaintance. But I can only imagine that when her grandchildren chose to go to war, Margaret was as steadfast in love as she was in her beliefs. And she always had her priorities right.
I'm Michael. I am the oldest son of the oldest son.
You go right ahead. As I join you.
Actually, was his honorary Senate hate. Back when I was not speaking. Grandma, wow. We, those of us that have seen war, it does have a sight, a smell, a taste that the detective will never know. And when Grandma said war is wrong, I honestly do believe war is wrong. I've seen it. I've done it. It doesn't feel good. You have bad dreams about it. We all do. We all live with them every day. But Grandma was my fallback. I always had somebody to talk to that understood what war was. It's wrong. You shouldn't kill anybody. You shouldn't have to live that way. And I think it's very important that we all remember that. Pass it on and keep it there. So our kids don't have to do this. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. I'm arriving a little late from the speech in San Antonio. Thanks to Governor Perry, I get to spend a lot of time down there. And, may not be the right thing to say in this place of peace, but I'm not very pacific when it comes to Governor Perry. Margaret was either. Like all the rest of you, I don't really have any prepared remarks. I just want to share from the heart a little of my affection to celebrate the life of Margret Hofmann. Probably repeat some things that Ann and others have said here because we shared the same experiences. I first met Margret about 40 years ago, and as I said in the online comments, I think of Margret with that growth that Councilmember Larson took the lead in dedicating to her, and the oak trees, and the fact that in her commitment to the cause of peace and our environment and the other principles that she really believed in, that she could be as firm and tough as those giant oak trees. But she also provided that gentleness of the shade of the oak tree on a summer day. And was such a really special person. Stephen was reminding me, along with your being an honorary page, Stephen was a page for me in the state senate when he was the age of his two sons, Steve and Marshall. Many good years together. And I think of Margaret's commitment to peace. which so many of you have talked about. I talked with Margret and then read her story just before Libby and I went to Dresden on about the 50th anniversary of the bombing of Dresden. The scars still so evident half a century later. And knowing that she came so close to death in a way that would have cut off her life and saw the horrors of bombing civilian populations. It was something that affected her and all of us who knew her as we dealt with the Vietnam War, the invasion of Iraq, our misguided policy today in Afghanistan. Margret, a voice for peace. We are, with Margret and her role in this community, also reminded of the depth and determination that Margret had. The last time that I actually saw Margret personally, she was coming, as she had done so many times before, to one of the gatherings for me, one of the political gatherings, and this time she was on her walker. I had known her as a much younger woman, right up to the time that age began to have its effect. Thankfully, Stephen called me last year in Washington when Margret was there having so many health problems last year, and I got a chance to chat with her again and know that she still had that same determination that I had known some 40 years ago. You know, reflecting on the Oak Grove again, I like to go by there on my bicycle when I carry home. It's a really tiny little place in a key spot. And what Margret did was the little bit that each of us can do that can still have a very big impact. So she made tree hugging, a term that some use against us, but I'm probably a tree hugger like Margret. Our community is better because she hugged those trees. We will have that memorial honoring her in the heart of our city, and know that each of us, like Margret, maybe not with this big an impact, but each of us can have our little bit of helping this be a better place and a more peaceful place. I thank Margret and her family for all that they meant to me through the years.
I just have one little thing to say. That you never know how much you miss someone until they're gone.
We're happy to have a tree grove named for Martha, but there's a tree incidentally, I live in Hyde Park. I'm going to drink through. And there's a tree at the fire station in Hyde Park that needs a plaque. Margret Hofmann's tree, because of an incident that happened at the fire station. Margret had been working for a tree ordinance for a number of years. Developers just couldn't see saving land by saving a tree. So Margret had markers placed around the city at the root of trees that were very old and qualified for a special tree in Hyde Park. This tree, a big pecan, had this marker. One day I had a call from somebody in the neighborhood saying, what are they doing at the fire station? So I ride my bicycle up and called, and what I see, this big bulldozer was just cutting out the roots of this tree. The tree sat the street and sidewalk on one side and dirt and ground on the other. And it had been there for years and years and years. And it wasn't getting nourishment on the street side, and all these big roots were being cut. I just went bonkers, and I got out in front of the bulldozer and said, I go with the next scoop. So the guy said, look, lady, I got work. And I said, I'm sorry, I just stood there. So everything shut down. They all got off their work. And I got down, I called some city officials, and it was kind of noontime, and they came up, and I cussed like a sailor about what dodged this tree, and went to council next Thursday, and raved and raved about it. Margaret was on the council, Margaret got her tree ordinance because of that tree.
I'll just add one other thing, and that is that my husband's printing business was an all-union printing business. And when they had the dedication of the group of trees across from City Hall, Margaret said she was so glad that it was happened to be on Cesar Chavez Street because he had done so much for all of us. And so, you know, it meant a lot to her. It meant a lot to everybody, I think. And I'll just add one other thing. We had a big boycott on grapes during that, when Cesar Chavez had called for it. And my kids were still little during that boycott. So one day, the boycott was over. I brought them some grapes from the grocery store, and they said, "Gee, where did you discover this brand new fruit?"
Greetings, everyone. I go by James, and I didn't get to know Margaret as well as many of you, but she came into my life rather circuitous. Roundabout way, if you will. Back in 1993, as you recall, we had a little incident with Treaty Oak, and some guy thought he was, but anyway, you all remember that story. Well, I was getting involved with things back in those days, and John Bertritis, who was the city arborist at the time, invited me onto the Urban Forestry Board and got me involved with the Treaty Oak thing. And so I had a hand in the celebration of the Treaty Oak. Well, after all that was over, we had a party at our house, my wife and I, for the people who assisted us in that effort. Well, lo and behold, Margaret shows up. Up until that point in time, I might have heard her name, but it didn't mean anything to me. And she walks into my house, and she was introduced to me, and she was introduced to me as one who was a tree person. I said, well, that's great, that's cool. And as a former council member, I said, well, that's great, that's wonderful. But then, I also was introduced to her as being a survivor of Dresden. And that damn near made me cry. Because I had done the perusal of the war over time, and of all the atrocities that have ever occurred on the face of this planet, that ranks high on the list. What they did to that city, what we did to that city, is just inexcusable and almost unforgivable. And for somebody who was able to get out of that, I use the word Holocaust, hellacious Holocaust. There's no other explanation for it. You've heard it used. How many times did she go into a bomb shelter? A couple hundred. How many times have any of us even seen a bomb shelter? Much less approached to have to get into one. So after that, I didn't get to know her well, but I got to know a little bit more about her over time. And of course, I was really honored to have her in my home. Gee. What can I say? But I didn't keep up with her, and it wasn't until late last year I was walking into the aisle of the H-E-B store and rounded the corner, and lo and behold, there was Margret Hofmann. I said, hey, look, it's Margret Hofmann, my wife and I. So we got time, a little chat, and be with her for a moment or two. Everybody's being so somber here about Margret. And I'm thinking to myself, every time, I was only in her presence like twice that I can remember. And I felt so, I'll say honored, but I feel honored when I'm in the presence of most anybody. Just for the mere fact to say hello to me, I think that's pretty cool. But that's besides the point. During the time that I met Margret in my home and the time that I saw her at the HEB, a lot had happened, obviously. But every time I saw a tree, I just had this little glimmer of Margret Hofmann. And then when that park got dedicated down there, I said, well, by golly, that's just one of the coolest things I can think of. Because, usually we have to be dead and buried before they honor us in some way. And here's somebody that can actually go walk in a park and touch a tree that's been dedicated to her. And if you stop to think about that, that's, I don't know, heaven forbid, I don't know what I'd ever done to be honored in such a way. But for her, it was an honor, I think, because I mentioned that at the time we saw her in the HEB, and she said, oh yes, and she was just so gracious about it. But it's so cool. And I say, when we leave here, we can go with all these memories of Margret, and in case you ever want to refresh them, all you have to do is look at a tree. And know that in Austin, Texas, we have a special relationship with trees. And by golly, I've been told over time, greenhouse down, but I've been told over time it's because of people like Margret, and almost specifically because of Margret, that we do have such a special relationship with trees. And I know the time that I was on the forestry board, it was an uphill battle for some of the things, because there are forces out there that would like to see trees removed for one reason or another. But I say, instead of bombing people, why don't you just go drop trees on them? You see these Afghanis coming down and saying, oh no, Americans and trees. You never see that. But by golly, we'd probably be a little better off in the world for it. And we've all been touched today, and our lives have been touched just by the mere fact that Margret Hofmann existed. So, with that, thank y'all.
My name's Gwen Sullivan, and each time I visited Margret, she wanted me to leave with a gift, and she taught me that each conversation can be a gift, where you share knowledge, insight, understanding. And in each of her stories, there was a theme, where there were two things that inspired me each day. And one was that at the end of the day, what we remember are acts of kindness. And the other was that each day, in whatever sphere you find yourself, there'll be a chance to make the possibility of violence less likely. So each day we can do something. And she spoke of each of her 5 children in such a beautiful way. And she had stories about each of you and how in your spheres you have found ways to share those acts of kindness and to make violence less likely. So when I see you here today, I want to say thank you, because as Margret always inspired me, each of you inspire me too. Thank you.
My name is Elizabeth Gonzalez, and this is my first time back at Frederick meeting since we moved here. And Margret lived in South Austin, I lived in South Austin, and so I ran into her often, even though I hadn't been at a meeting. She would ask me why I hadn't been at a meeting, in the way that Margret has. And those of you who know me know that probably in the past, the word relentless might have been applied in my direction. And so there wasn't any difference that way between Margret and I, so there would be no need for conversion. Only perhaps hijacking, and where my energy might go in one Margaret's projects. And I'm kind of here to thank people in the meeting for taking the meeting to this place. One of the projects I probably didn't want to get hijacked on that I want to thank people here for is the memorial garden that I hear people have put, which had been a Margret project. And I'm profoundly grateful both for Margret and for the people in the meeting who did that. Because Margret was a lot about Quaker meeting. She was about her family. She was about her friends. But she was also a lot about Quaker meeting. We haven't talked about that, so I want to talk about that a little bit. For me, I came to meeting in the late 80s, and Margret and Otto were a lot of the heart of the meeting for me. And so that's why I dragged my behind here, because I was allegedly cleaning my house and using one of the threats of, if you don't clean your house and you don't sort these papers, you can always hire Margret Hofmann to come and she's going to take your request. because there were no conversions, merely hijackings, is her hospitality. You know, that's the thing I don't think we've said about Margaret, is that for me she was a lot of the meeting, you know, and she would greet you, you know, she would see you, and all of you, and she would accept you. And I'm not going to come back to meeting Margaret. I'm sojourning with the Sikhs. And all right, well, you can come to my house. You can come talk to me. You know, and I'll probably write to you later. But you know, you can come to my house. And I thought about not coming to this because I hadn't been here, and my car had died, and all these other excuses that I would come up with. And I said, you have to go, because if you had died before Margaret, she would have been there, and she would have been there because it was the right thing. And Margaret always knew to do the right thing. You didn't know what to do. She would tell you what to do. But Margaret always would do the right thing. And she would get the meeting to do the right thing, and she would get anyone in her sphere to do the right thing. And there was another person who was as profoundly hospitable as Margaret, which was Ruth Ellinger. And I know Alan was there for that funeral, so was Margaret. And those were like really great ladies. That is the passing of the ages. And when their children were talking about Ruth's passing, it's the same way with Margaret's. That generation, that's what told us who to be as people. You know, if you want to know who to be, you would be Ann Richards, you would be Molly Iden, she would be Margaret Hofmann, you would be Ruth Ellinger. You would be those people, you know. And you didn't have to be anything else if you just were in their presence. And so there was another Quaker saying that, you know, that Margaret would just lived, that, you know, the light of God shined in everyone. She'd used it very often, but the light of God shined in everyone. And in some, it burned a mighty dim, you know. But in Margaret, it shone so strongly.
I'm Leroy Haverlaw. 17 years ago this month, a baby named Alexa was born, the daughter of Stephen and Kirsten. For that happy event, all of Alexa's grandparents were at the hospital. Margaret, Otto, Karen, and me. Alexa's birth brought the Hofmann and Howard families closer together, a real blessing for us. We've known Otto for years through music circles. Karen has played even today one of Otto's organs, and tonight we'll be playing at a wedding of one of Otto's organs. This grandchild in common gave us a chance to know Margaret better. Margaret was a woman of peace, exemplified in so many ways over the years. All of us here know that. In Margaret's final hours at Christopher House, I held her hand and recited words that she may or may not have taken in, but which I felt named her. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called children of God. That statement is not exclusive for Christians or Muslims or Friends. It is inclusive. And it is a challenge, is it not, for all of us? It's Margaret's legacy. May we carry it out.
The word that I think of when I think of Margaret is courage. You all know why I would think that, but it's also because she demanded it of the rest of us too, I believe. I had talked to her about the decision that I was trying to make. It was difficult, and sort of out of the blue, in a way, she called me out one evening and asked me if I had made the decision. And of course not, I had been avoiding it. And she gave me a deadline. I was really grateful right away, because I knew that would do it. And she called me back, just like she said she would, the next evening to ask me what my decision was. And then years later, when I had another difficult decision to make, and I wanted a group of people, we called her she had a VHS player, and she asked me to rent movies. She gave me a list, and I picked one that I'd heard something about, and it sounded really good to me, and I was curious to see it. In the middle of it, one part, she said, I'm going to go in the kitchen for a few minutes, don't pause it. And then she came back in, and I just couldn't believe that I was sitting there watching Sophie's Choice with Margret Hofmann. And I just couldn't even say anything one way or the other about the movie. And it was a Saturday night, and the next morning she rose and spoke in meeting. And it wasn't a common occurrence that she would do that. And when she said that she'd been thinking of her mother, I wished I could just evaporate, and she recited a poem that her mother had written. And later on, after the Rise meeting, I apologized to her for having taken Sophie's Choice to her house, and she looked genuinely puzzled and asked me why it was on her list, she said. And it just struck me then that she had lived with this pain, of course, all these years. And she did mention that too. She'd never forgotten her mother, of course, every day she would think of her. So she lived with that pain all the time, and she didn't seem to me to be someone who was living with pain of that profound sort of pain. So the only explanation is that just profound courage to face life and to continue to love all of those she came to know.
I just want to say a few short words. I know there's plenty of people here that still want to speak. My name is Stephen Powell, and I'm the husband of Anna, or middle kin, as they call her. Margaret and I had an interesting relationship over the years. I first met her in the mid-'80s, shortly after I met Anna. And I think Anna kind of prepared me for her, let's put it that way. A little background on myself. I grew up in the military. My dad was retired Army. He served two terms in Vietnam, 2 tours. Fortunately, he didn't see battle. He was in the back of the maintenance shops. But anyway, so I grew up in the military. I spent 9 years in the military myself. So when I first met Margaret, of course, that was a whole discussion by itself. And over the years, we kind of sparred with each other. She would try to change my thinking, of course, gracefully. And I would listen to her. And I would say something and try to change her thinking. And of course, neither one of us was going to change. But despite that, I grew close to Margaret. I consider her mother. And she was a woman of firm beliefs, firm commitment, and very caring. And she never showed anger. I never seen her angry once, all the years I knew her. We used to tease each other quite a bit. That was always the fun part, teasing. She liked that, I think. And especially with words. You know, I'm not the most eloquent with words. But there's one favorite little discussion I like to get into with her. It was about lying or laying in bed. So I remember the instant I said laying in bed, that was the wrong word. She corrected me immediately. So I countered with, so what if you're lying about laying in bed? Are you lying about laying in bed? Right. Right.
That's what I always got.
Right, same here. But yeah, despite our differences, I mean, we had some good discussions, and like I say, I loved her as a mother.
she'll be greatly missed. She's changed a lot of people's lives for the good. And not many people can say that, or not many people have done that in their lives. So it's definitely something that she will definitely be missed. Anyway, that's all.
So maybe I can follow as well. So one of the blessings about being a Hofmann is that you have grown up your entire life with her memory. There's also another blessing, and that's marrying Hofmanns. And for the spouses who are here as well, you probably remember that's a special process. There's a little bit of an interview involved. And it was all good. Steve actually prepared me. He said, just get ready, there's going to be a lot of questions, it'll be good. And what I realized though is she wanted to know about who we were as people, what we thought about the world, what we were doing to inspire and encourage others, and how we were going to encourage our children to do the same. What an awesome way to, your future mother-in-law, right? I also remember a couple other things. Scrabble, I think, is a current theme here. We played Scrabble. I got to do it in French, she played in German. Little did I know that was because she could win with 2 letters. It took me like 16. Never. And the third thing I got is a lot of joy for children and more. And probably the best belly laugh I ever had was the day I got to call and tell her that I was having twin boys. Those of you know the Timmy and Tommy escapades. She just smiled and really laughed. So it was a real honor. And I know for each of us, as we remember your mother, our mother-in-law, we just appreciate many, many, many years. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm Andrew Hofmann, grandson, and my daughter said something a moment ago that kind of sparked off about 45 minutes of thought. You don't miss someone really until they're gone. And well, let's see if I can keep my train of thought through this. So, hearing stories, people sharing things, I realized I really didn't know as much as I thought I did. Life happens, marriage, career, excuses, why not to go visit grandma. Get the once a month call from Dad, oh, you really should go visit your grandma. Dad, I'll go visit her, I'll go visit her, shortly, I'll go make a plan. Well, can't do that anymore. She was always the one saying, oh, come visit me. I do have the library. I've got conversation. I've got books, everything in the world. But hearing the stories that people say here, I'm like, wow, I didn't know that. I didn't know that either. Well, I kind of knew that, but not the depth of that. And so it really makes you reflect on how you really kind of wish you would have taken that time, made that effort. Really put some serious thought into sharing experiences and knowledge with those that are close to you. You can't go back and do some things that you didn't take advantage of the first time. So, we love you, Grandma. We miss you. Thanks.
When I was a teenager, Aunt Margret married my mother's baby brother. And it was such a joy to get to visit with her through the years. And as this young man has said, not as often as today we wish we might have taken advantage of those times to be together. I'm thinking back to an afternoon about 2 years ago, and we were attending a family gathering. And Aunt Margret had an unusual little pin on the lapel. And I said, Aunt Margret, tell me about this pin. What is this? And she said it is the symbol of turning swords into plowshares. And since I grew up on a farm, I immediately realized I recognized that was the point of the plow that would dig the furrow. And Aunt Margret gave me that pin. She just took it off immediately, and I put it on my jacket. And I took it home and put it away at such a good place that I searched through all sorts of little treasure boxes the last wear it today. And you know, Aunt Margaret didn't always tell us what she was involved in. The relatives who live in this part of the country would tell me, this morning we read in the Austin American Statesman that Aunt Margaret is doing so-and-so. And in later years, it was radio and television. And sometimes it was her voice. And sometimes she took up the pen. And sometimes she probably sat at her typewriter. It was her effort and her energy that has been such an inspiration to me and to so many in this room. And before this service began, someone was showing pictures of her childhood on the wall. And once I had opportunity to ask her about some of those pictures, and if you remember, there was one of the school teacher and all the little children were standing on the steps of the school. And it must have been a girls' school, or perhaps it was only the little girls in her class. And I asked her about that. And she told me that she remembered the morning when an official came into their classroom and told the little girls that from that day forward, they would no longer say, "Good morning," to their teacher. But from that day on, they were to come in and say, "Heil Hitler." And she said, we looked at each other and we giggled because we thought, how strange. And in their innocence, those little girls couldn't have known that that was the beginning of the end of life as they had known it. And how remarkable that Aunt Margaret would come to a new country and that she would invest her life as she did. Yesterday, I was reading that scripture in Proverbs 31, and it is talking about the woman that God would have each of us as women to be. And in one of the last verses it says, her children rise up and call her blessed. And to these children, to our cousins, and the grandchildren and the great-grandchildren, and all of us who loved her, you are the real memorial to Margret Hofmann. And the choices that we make with our lives and what we choose to do to make the world a better place, that's what will honor the memory of Aunt Margret. Thank you.
I'm Roxanne Elder. I worked for American Friends Service Committee in the early 80s, and that's where I first met Margret. She used to drop by the office quite a bit over on 6th Street, which was kind of a hub of political activity. Glenn Maxey was in the back office working on gay and lesbian issues. We were in the front office working on peace in Central America. And this was, of course, before the internet, where you actually had to go places to get information, and Margret would drop by to get new information on the Friends Committee on National Legislation, or the Quaker United Nations office, or whatever we were working on. And it was clear to me that Margret was a very special person from the very first time that I met her, and she was so gracious in her willingness to introduce me to people in the Friends Committee. I was a friend with a little f, as they say, not a Quaker, and introducing me to friends in Texas, Arkansas, and Oklahoma. And I will always treasure her helpfulness as I learned the ropes of peace activism. My good friend Don Gardner is out of town, and he asked me to read something, so if that's all right. Don Gardner, as some of you may know, is a nationally known arborist and now does consulting work. And He and Margaret shared not only political work, but a very special love of trees. And he writes, "My dear friends, friends in both the peace community and friends in the tree community, it is rare that these two groups have gotten together. Pam, his wife, and I are out of town and we miss being there with you. These are the kinds of gatherings that are so important for support and nourishment." I first met Margaret Hofmann in 1982. The peace movement was being energized by Ronald Reagan's threat of nuclear war. We in Austin formed the Austin Peace and Justice Coalition, which had 40 member groups at its height. We had lots of meetings, and that's where I met Margaret. She struck me from the beginning as a no-nonsense person. Over the years, as I got to know her better, I found she was a deep thinker and intellectual who cut through the BS like a chainsaw cutting through chinaberry wood. She asked really good, pointed questions, and she was never afraid to rock the boat. I have come to realize that Margaret was somewhat of a mentor to me. She was political to her core. She was a good tactician and a great strategist. She would come up to me after a meeting and say something like, "You've got to do such and such," or "If you do that, you've got to do this." I wasn't used to people telling me what to do, but it didn't take me long to learn that she was right about most of her orders, so it didn't bother me. On the contrary, I always yearned for her counsel. Margaret and I had in common a sincere pacifism and love of peace. We both believed nonviolence was the answer to conflict. We were both students of Gandhi and Saul Alinsky, but Margaret had such a deeper understanding of it all. Of course, Margaret and I also shared a love of trees. She liked it that I was an arborist. She said many times, "I can't believe you're also an arborist." We were from different generations, but she knew how to connect the generations. She was a quiet person who left the world a better place.
My name is Elliot Beecham. I'm a friend of Steve's. We grew up together between 6th grade through 12th grade, and we've read stuck together a lot. I think that's kind of an understatement because we were almost inseparable for several years. So what that meant was, besides my own mother, I saw Miss Hoffman just a little bit more less. So I was the beneficiary of a lot of her wisdom and a lot of her teachings, whether or not I knew it. There's a lot of things she told me, and one of the things she taught me, among a lot of things, was how to speak quietly on the phone. These guys don't tell that story a lot. But I was lucky enough 2 months ago to get a chance to talk to her. And we spoke about a lot of things. And she was, we spoke about her tree advocacy, which I've talked to my kids about. We spoke about, we updated each other on our families. And I want to go back a little bit. I used to get a haircut that's called a Jerry curl. And it's very oil-intensive hair. And she spoke about this, the superficiality was something that bothered me. And that was the ultimate superficiality. And so and the thing is, it was an expensive haircut. It cost $60. And so, and back then, that was a lot of money. So she, every time I go in for what I call an oil change, she would say, "Oh, you gotta go on those $60 haircuts." And I said, "Yeah." So fast forward to talking to her a couple months ago, one of the things that she brought up was that, "So you still getting those $60 haircuts?" And I said, "No." I said, "Actually, I don't do anything to my hair." She was like, "What?" I said, "Yeah, I have dreadlocks now. I can just hear the disgust in her voice." So she said, "You gotta cut those off." So, if you like them, you like them. And then she paused and she said, "I wish you had that money back from those $60 haircuts." I said, "You're absolutely right." So we were talking, and she got serious, and she told me, "I would like you to come down and visit, show me your family, and they can meet me. We can talk, and you can show them where you lived and who you knew." And I said, "Yeah, it'd be good. You could relate to them the way I was and how I did things on a regular basis that I tell my kids I never want them to do." So I told her, and I said, that would be a good idea, I'd like to do that. I said, because you have a lot of ammunition to relate to my kids, and she got quiet. And then she said to me, I don't have any ammunition. I don't use that word. She said, I have swords, but I don't have ammunition. And she said, I need to be careful when you say words like that. And, I consider myself a really peaceful person. Probably one of the most peaceful persons you're going to meet. And so I got a lot of things I still need to learn, but I crossed peaceful off my list because I thought I got that. I had to uncross it. Because when she said that, it opened up my head to make me realize that, peace is not just something that you actively pursue. It's not even just something you write about or speak about. Peace is how you use the words, the very words that you use on a daily basis. And I just never thought that. I just never thought that even though we are peaceful, we still have the words of hate and war in our vocabulary, and that we need to watch what we say. And so she taught me a lot when I was a teenager, and up to 2 months ago, she was still teaching. So thank you, Ms. Hofmann.
A thought came to me about something. If anything wrong, you should just say this for me. My mom's first husband, or second husband. Hey, I've been there too. I've always grown up, for as long as I can remember, with him having a personal distaste for grandma. He might be the one she ran off, for better or worse. Really? Okay. But either way, I've always grown up with this knowing that they just, it didn't work. It didn't work. And I never heard anything really talk about anything about this part of the family or anything. And when I told him that grandma was in poor health, for the first time in my life, he sat there and educated me about what he'd done through, what she's been through. And it just, I'm like, why did she hear the dad, he told me through that. That means my dad was hurt.
I'm Margret Stockton, and I probably have a more recently met Margret than many people in this room. I met her when I started reading about 10 years ago now. And one of the first times I met her was she was giving a talk about, I think, archiving or some organizing records of some kind for the meeting. And I'm really hoping I called her Mrs. Hofmann at the time, but I don't remember. As you all know, she's a little sensitive to that.
Yes.
But then, so someone had asked me if I would tape record her. And unfortunately, that one of the only tape recorder I could find was our children's Fisher Price, yellow, with a green microphone and red handle, and blue buttons. So I set that up and I set it there on the chair, and she looked at me and she said, "Are you going to test that?" And I said, "Okay, sure. So, ran the test and played it back, and she listened to it. She said, "Just can't shake that accent." So you are. I don't even think about that. But anyway, later on, she had a vision, which was this kind of memorial garden. I mean, she had several visions, but one of them was to have a memorial garden, which she brought up every time we talked about living in some different place. So it wasn't going anywhere. And so we ended up working on that together, and I got to know her through that, which was a great experience. And then we stayed friends, and because I have the schedule, I helped her with rides and doing things, and people in the meeting would say to me, "Oh, that's so great that you're helping Margret," and I just kept it. And I just want to say, I was the lucky one.
My name is Mary Burke, and I have known Margaret about as long a time as Roxanne has. It's so lovely to see you, Roxanne. In the little house on 6th Street in 1982, where friends, the AFSC was, and Glen Maxey in the back, and Levine, Big Levine, another office somewhere. Anyway, many people there when the Austin Peace and Justice Coalition was started. And I knew Margaret also through the Austin Interfaith Peace Network, which we had around that time, a Quaker meeting on Washington Square. So over many, many years, we ran into each other at various events. And then the Austin Interfaith Peace Network morphed into the Fellowship of Reconciliation. And Margaret and Otto were both members of FOR in the early years, in the 40s and 50s. I also remember from something that Brad wrote when he was talking, when he was writing about Margaret after she died, that I think they met, am I right, at the Albert Schweitzer event in Colorado. Is that where your parents met? It was, and that she hitchhiked across the country to see Albert Schweitzer in Aspen, Colorado. And I don't know what the date of that was. But she and I had long conversations about many things, and I think we got on together and were sort of soulmates in many ways because we were both European. And she liked meeting somebody who was also transplanted. I think over 40 years in the States, because it's obvious to all you, I'm sure, I must be talking in Ireland. And she was very interested in Ireland and Irish affairs and Irish writers. We used to talk about books as well. But I wanted to make the point about the Fellowship of Reconciliation because it was Margaret who kept us, a small group in Austin, together. I don't know whether there's any other, yes, Charlie's there, Charlie Jackson, FOR members, and Karen Simpson, another FOR member. And Margaret was really the glue which kept us all together. And we'd meet once a month in the Episcopal Seminary Library until she, after her heart surgery, and she wasn't able to come to the evening meetings, not daytime, so it was hard. And so we really mourn her absence and feel we must, for her sake, as well as for our own, get ourselves together and continue the work that the FOR does. And she knew all the names of all the famous people of the early days of FOR. So for the Fellowship of Reconciliation, I have to say thank you to Margaret. And I will miss her terribly. I used to go and visit her in her home and sit and have great chats. She's a very special person. And I don't think anyone has mentioned really that she and I together, we laughed and we talked together. We talked about serious things and solemn things, and somebody said, a man named James over there said, "Oh, you're making her sound so solemn." And she was not. She emanated joy as well as the seriousness of what she felt. But she didn't take herself seriously, or you know, she was very special. And I would miss her very much.
Friends, we've been here for 2 hours. I don't want to close it if there's something that needs to be said. But let's have about 10 minutes of silent worship. And if you feel that you need to share something, stand up and the microphone will be brought to you. But we do need to be closing.
You've heard a lot today about all the things that we all admired about Margaret. She was important to all of us. And what I heard a lot of was how Margaret actually embodied our Quaker testimonies. A meeting is real, in my opinion, the thing that gives a meaning its weight is the older members who show us by example how to live the testimonies. I heard that Margaret embodied the testimony of integrity and also the testimony of peace and respect for others, for the light of God in all of the people. Now that the marvelous adventure of Margaret's life is over, we all, that burden falls on our shoulders to live the same testimonies and make an example for all the others around us.
All this wonderful conversation brought back one more memory for me. Margaret and I spent years trying to tell the truth about her life and her experience as a girl in Nazi Germany. And Margaret experienced a lot of trauma, as has been evident in some of this conversation here today, to the point she couldn't quite get to some of those places that hurt her the most. She tried really, really hard because she was strong, right? We're all human. We would all do the same way, right? After the story was over, after it was finally ran, I went over to her house and she says, "Oh, there's still so much more to do. Well, why you haven't even read my book yet?" And I said, "Oh, I read the pamphlet, The Key to Survival." She says, no, my book. I wrote 250 pages about my life when I was 24, 25 years old. And if there was ever a moment where the nonviolence was broken, it was right there for me. Margaret, you really had a book the whole time. You never shared this with me all these years we spent together. And so she finally did share this book with me. And it was written when she was 24. She had aspired to bicycle across America. The book didn't give to me or reveal to me what I thought I was going to find in it, which is something that she hadn't told me already, right? What was in the book was Margaret's essence, the 81, 82-year-old woman who I'd come to know well in her home, was very much alive and in the heart of the 24-year-old woman who wrote the words. And you know what jumped out of the pages more than anything else? It was Margaret's inherent virtue. No matter what we think about law or politics or anything else that was said in this room today, Margaret's sense, her inner virtue, is going to be with all of us for a long, long, long time. And especially for Margaret's grandchildren and great-grandchildren who have the opportunity to read her writings. I think you'll be most thrilled and inspired that in the heart of this 24-year-old woman was just this amazing decency and compassion and caring for others, whether the conversation had to deal with war and peace or the future of the country or not. She was so wanting to connect on a decent and virtuous level. How wonderful to know that it's just not that 81-year-old woman who had come to that point and could share with us all this knowledge, but that as a 24-year-old woman, she was exactly in that place. It was a great privilege to see. I'm sorry to talk twice.
Every single one of us has had a lot of deep experiences with Margaret. And I could tell you a lot of mine, but I won't. Instead, I'm just going to remind you that, and I'm sure this has happened a lot over the years when I would go to visit her. There'd be times when she had some sort of health setback and then was recovering and was happening a few times. And when she was in that recovery mode, she would get very impatient because she had things to do. And those things to do were the kinds of things that people have been talking about today. She wanted to tell people about her principles. She wanted to tell people, give them the cautionary tales of what had happened in her childhood and her youth to warn us. She wanted to give us the benefit of her experience. She had things to do, and I think the last time I actually was able to have a conversation with her, maybe a month and a half ago or so, she had things to do. So I'm hoping that we remember that, and as a very multifaceted person, probably each one of us may have a little bit different idea of what that thing to do was. But I would encourage you not to think of this as a closed chapter. She had things to do, and I think she would appreciate us thinking about what that was.
I agree that you don't know how much you miss someone until you actually lose them, but they're always there in your heart, so.
I came into this family 2 short years ago, and I met Grandma about a month into our relationship with her granddaughter. And 11 years ago, I lost my grandmother, and I didn't know what it meant to really have one because I lost mine at such a young age. And meeting Grandma was a revitalization, if you will, a second chance. And I knew exactly when I met her that she was going to be a very, very important woman in my life. And I knew exactly what she wanted for me in my life. And the minute I met her, she told me everything what she, like all her what she felt in the military, what she felt, what she's gone through. And this, me, as I stand here today, a member of the Armed Forces of the United States of America, this was not my choice before I met her. The military was my last choice, but when circumstances of what I came through in life, this was the best choice I had. So this is why I stand here today, in the place that I am, after she gave me her blessing to join. I'm very thankful for her and everything that she's given me. And as Andrew said, I wish I had more time. I spent a year in training. I wish I would have been able to have that year to gain wisdom and knowledge off of her. And she will always be loved and missed. Thank you.
Friends, let's close with it's a gift to the simple. Simple gifts.
The words are in the program, and Margaret's going to start with the first 2, and then we can all join in on the third.
Good time.
be in the valley of love and delight. When true simplicity is gained, to bow and to bend, we shan't be ashamed. Turn, turn, will be our light, till by turning, turning, we come round right. It's a gift to be loved and love to return. It's a gift to be taught and a rich gift to learn. When we live the life what we live each day, we'll all live together, we'll all learn to say. When true simplicity is gained, to bow and to bend, we shan't be ashamed. Turn, turn, will be our light, till by turning, turning, we come round right. One more time. Till by turning, turning, we come round right.
We have refreshments in the back. Please stay that.